watermelons do very well there, and rock melons or cantaloupe and cucumbers. Grows very well in summertime. Wintertime is the best time to grow in cabbages and lettuce and leeks and carrots and that. Melons, we have red inside and yellow inside. This was at the end of the season, and I suddenly realized that I had not taken any photograph of melon, because we all like watermelon. Pineapples grow very well. We have two different types there, the ones without the prickles and the ones with the prickles. We dry them as well, and we send them off to New Zealand. We have 9 different types of bananas on Pitcairn. This is a cooking banana, and this is what you'd buy in the shop, the China we call, and this is the regular one that grows all around the island, in the valleys. And incidentally, in the valleys, when the Valley Mutiny was planted, there were bananas in all the valleys, and that's McCoy's Valley, that's Jack Williams Valley, that's Isaac's Valley. Christian didn't have a name to his valley because he lived where we are, and that's bananas in that area. That's Matt's Valley, that's Matt and Quintal. And so apparently they divided up the valley so they all could have some bananas. We dry bananas, which we ship off to New Zealand, as I mentioned before, and dehydrate them. Electricity is quite expensive. We pay 50 cents a kilowatt hour for electricity. They hope within the next year to have wind generators on the island that will give us better electricity. Electricity is only about 10 hours a day. 10 o'clock at night it goes off, and then we don't really have to go to sleep. We all have 12-volt lighting system, and if we happen to be watching DVDs or something on TV, most of us have an inverter that would enable us to go on. In the summer months, we put the bananas, these bright orange ones are papayas. We put them on the roof and put plastic covering over them too, but it generates electricity. Sugarcane has been a traditional thing for producing syrup on the island, and we grind up the sugarcane. When I was young, during the war years, there were up to about 100 barrels of sugarcane lined up to be ground. At that time we had a mill that we pushed by hand. Nowadays it's a power taker from the tractor, and then we would pour the juice into the pan, which is about 7 feet long, and we set the fire going. In about 2 hours, 2.5 hours actually, it takes to boil a pot of molasses. Quite nice with dumplings or pancake or whatever, but that is sugarcane molasses. We don't turn it into sugar, just eat it as such. Now arrowroot is another thing that produces the flour for the island. All through history they've grown arrowroot, which you grind up into flour. Arrowroot, the shape of it is like a carrot, but it grows and it has scales rather than or husk. You peel off, and then the owners would plant it. The community would come out, help them dig their crop, bring it in, and then we'd remove the husk, and then we'd grind them in the power takeoff mill. This mill driven by the power takeoff from the tractor. And the water is put in these tubs and left to settle. It takes about 4 hours for it to settle. Then we break the arrowroot flour, put it on benches or tables, and leave them for about 6 or 7 days, and we sieve them so that they find that flour. And they'd be dried in approximately 2 weeks, 11 days to 2 weeks. And that produces arrowroot flour, makes a nice pudding, makes a nice biscuit. And actually arrowroot is quite good. We don't do it every year now, more traditional, but we need some again because I love the arrowroot pudding. But that is the flour in emergency. The amazing thing about arrowroot flour, it lasts for many years, whereas wheat flour only lasts about 3 or 4 months and it gets musty. We store them all in our deep freezer where it is flour, regular flour. Then we come out and we look down the ship landing point, look down on the landing place. Now they are planning to build this breakwater. I don't know what the current plans are, but I have looked at the old plans before, done in 1964, the original one. They hope at that time to start building across here. And then the other one was supposed to be near the big rock, and out there, and then you would come in through there. And we hope that some of you will be able to make use of this breakwater and come and visit Pitcairn. But I don't know just how practical it will be. It will be a challenge because the seas, in 1972, I was in one of the longboats. It was smashed to pieces. I ended up with one leg broken and the other was badly injured. And in 1988, we were going out again, and I was thrown in the air and got my nose broken, my not as much my weight. But I made it. It's a challenge to live there, the way it is, rough seas, because it does get rough. Then we go out in our longboats. This would be an average day. Very, very seldom that they aren't breakers breaking in there. Hardly ever that in there. But there are a few days when they aren't breakers going into Bounty Bay. We come out to get supplies from the ship, from New Zealand. All the supplies are brought in containers, generally 4 containers at a time, sometimes up to 5. And to give you an idea of freight charges, one of those quad bikes, we call it quad bikes, 18 they cost $1,000 freight from New Zealand to Pitcairn. So, freight costs are high. You've got to meet the cost of it. Food is quite expensive, I think, landing here on Pitcairn. Anyway, everything has to be removed from the containers, and then it's put in a net and lowered down into the longboat. The longboat is the long side, would take down foodstuff, hardware, anything that would fit in there. Number 2 launch is generally taking down timber, building material, and these are power poles. Could be dangerous, actually. I've seen our boys dive overboard several times when taking down bundles of timber. When it started swinging, get out of control, you have no choice but to jump and come around the other side of the boat, come up again, because you get knocked with one of those 2-ton bundles of timber. You could get hurt. But those are power poles at that time. Now, just before we left, this ship, it's an ocean-going tug, started bringing in heavier equipment for rebuilding the jetty of the longboat. And they drive the equipment across on this barge. And then the barge is driven in, there's 2 outboard motors on, and landed at. They will drive out onto the landing lane. And the heaviest item they landed during that project was, I think, 13.5 tons. There were only a few had landed when we were there. Did they have problems, Mike, in getting up the rock crusher?
No, all came ashore eventually.
Yeah, everything got ashore, but they had to wait for several days for conditions to be right. Actually, it was such a risky job. The drivers driving it off, they had a tank strapped to their back. They had a hammer strapped to their hand, just in case it goes overboard. And one of the divers from the ship was in the boat accompanying it, just in case, for the sake of precaution. When cruise ships come to Pitcairn, if possible, they like to anchor off Pitcairn, off Bounty Bay, off Adamstown. And this is World Discoverer, one of the smaller ones. And most times they're able to land their passengers in Zodiac. Zodiacs are quite safe, except I've seen one of these flip over. There were 9 passengers on. They got a bit scared. But our boys standing by around there, they were ready, and they dived in and helped them out. But generally speaking, they get ashore in Zodiac. Last year in February, for the first time in our history, 2 cruise ships arrived in one day. They landed their passengers in their own ship's tender, and one was the Saga Rose, and the other one was a French one. But more than 700 people were landed in one day, and the governor's rep there on the island, he was amazed that they were able to do that. And I think you could see the dollar signs in his eyes. And thought, well, that's a good way to try and earn revenue to the island, try and improve the landing facility so that more people will be able to get ashore. But they did it. They brought in the 700 odd passengers and took them all on board again. Now, Rose Apple is now occupying almost 2/3 of the island. We used to use it for cooking and water heating all through the years. But recently, in the last 5-6 years, 10 years now, we've been using electric and gas stove. So the wood is only used for water heating, and it's gradually taking over land. Experts here in London, and they've been trying to find the best method. Every year someone has come out to the island of eradicating some of the trees, because you cut down one tree and probably 20 of them would get shoots on the one stump. And anyway, roast apple is all right for making pies. You can make sponge cake. It's quite nice, but not as much as we have. And the trees, this is a typical seed of roast apple. Some of them grow a little bit larger, up to 10 inches or even up to a foot diameter. But it's not much used other than for firewood breaking. And out to the northwest side of the island, it's somewhat like our little Grand Canyon. And this is why when I was asked years ago if we run around the island, it's not practical to just go around the island. It's rocky, and going out to the west side, northwest side, Young's Rock down here, Long Ridge is here. And it's a good walk. We come down to the bottom of Long Ridge, and that is the western landing place. Back in 1983, we went out to a ship in rough condition, and we couldn't get ashore at Bounty Bay. There were 5 of us that took one. We had 3 boats. 5 of us that took one of the boats up to get it ashore, so that there could be more men to handle the 2 boats anchored offshore. And it was the scariest experience I think I've had. None of us carried a life jacket. 5 of us were all stripped half naked, and we went up there and got into the landing place. It was scary. It was quite an experience. But we unloaded the light things, fuel drums of fuel, that is a 44-gallon, 200-liter drums, had to be unloaded at Bounty Bay. We finally got in on the second day, and we sent third day actually. We got everything ashore. It doesn't happen very often like that. But when it does, it's quite scary when you have to stay at sea, you can't get ashore. Southwest side, the highest point is 1,100 feet, and it's pretty steep all along the south side. Very steep indeed. Ginger Valley it's called. And this is what it looks like on a calmer day. Now there is a spring down here, just it's about 300 feet up from the sea. But in the earlier days, Betty's mom said when she was a girl, they'd go down there to that spring and do their washing and leave the clothes to dry until they get light enough to be brought up. They were short of water back in this. Now we store water in concrete tanks and PVC tanks. And this is what Ginger Valley looks like. And this is Point Christian on the map. This is what it looks like when they have big waves. We do get a lot of swell from the southwest. Down here, there is a cave, and you go in, if it's very calm, you can't go in. It's a very low entrance. When you get inside, it's about 50 to 60 feet high. It's a big cavern with sandy beach. In fact, we got most of the sand building our home there. But last year, an American doctor and one of our men, they went in, they were contemplating going in, and then they were caught in a wave, and the boat was smashed to pieces, and they were locked in there. We didn't know they were out, we didn't know where they were, and then the alarm went off that these men are missing. They went out in the morning, so we went down to one of the launches around, and one of the small boats went in, and they found that they had gone up, and they were able to get ashore. They buried themselves in sand to try and keep warm, and we got the islander. He came out first, and then it was just nightfall when we got out of the doctor. He was a bit bruised, but we did get them out. It was very scary. There were waves going in. On the northeast side of the island, or well, almost east side of the island, this is what it looks like there. Now, one man known as Howland, he fell off while gathering bird's eggs somewhere in the 1890s, and his body was never recovered. Don't know what happened. His hat blew off. This is going down to the road. You can see these boats coming back up. We go down fishing, and there's a sandy beach there. There is this sandy beach, the only beach on the island now. We used to have a little beach at the landing place down today, but since they bridged the harbor, it's changed. And then there are these petroglyphs done by early Polynesians, somewhere between 850, 1300, somewhere in that region. And they are signs, those like birds, like chicken, human beings. And I generally joke and I say, at least they know how to make pizza feeding back then. Don't know where they came from, where they went. These are the type of stones. Thousands have been found over the years. The majority have been taken to museums, particularly New Zealand museums, as he's told. And we stopped at Easter Island on the way over and saw the big carvings there. It's amazing. And they said there are not very many of the rocks suitable to make from the stone antique. I mean, we have a lot of basalt, which is very, very practical. So they think that perhaps the Polynesians might have come to Mangareva Rock, Pitcairn, and then to Easter Island. It's possible. No one knows for sure. No one will ever know. This is St. Paul's Pool, nice place to go swimming when it's calm. But it gets rough, and it could be dangerous when you get out, try to go in the ocean like that. Sports, tennis courts were introduced to the island several years ago. The problem is, since then, most of the young people have left and use the courts once in a while, but not too often. Once in a while, we have a committee, sports committee, entertainment committee, that would suggest we go out for a picnic, have games up there at Flatlands, we call. And we'd have a day of sports, and others would sit down and do their carvings, and then we'd have dinner together before the evening. Cricket used to be very popular. When I was young growing up, we'd go out and have a day's cricket. The men would have one day, the women would have another day. Now there are not enough people to even do that. We have a mixed team of men and women, and that's not too frequent now either. But cricket used to be very popular. Christmas Eve on Pitcairn, the children would hang up their Christmas baskets or stockings. It's the same. When I was a boy, we looked forward to hanging up our baskets and waking up early in the morning to come out and see what Santa Claus had brought. Sometimes sweets, fruit, different things. We celebrate Christmas Day as sure as December 25 comes. Christmas Day will be celebrated on the 15th. Santa Claus doesn't always come because he finds it too hot to come down. December 25 quite often is warm, and but we put up trees on the square, generally about a dozen trees. And we plant these dozen trees on the square. We'd hang up presents for adults, for children. A day of fun, but it's a nice place to spend Christmas. Generally put the presents on the trees about 4 in the afternoon. And there's been a few wet Christmas. We put big tarpaulins across the square. And we'd sit there until around 5:30 when they start calling up the names. And each caller would call as loud as he could. So, it's kind of fun. But after everything has been removed, trees are pulled out, taken away, and the square is cleaned up, waiting for another December 25. Bounty Day, December 23, is always been celebrated. January 23, I didn't get yeah, we made a replica of the bounty. When I was young, they used to have some banana ones made up on the square. I can remember that well. Nowadays, we make a replica, and if we can tow it out, it will be towed out and set on fire to where the bounty actually was burned. More often than not, it's too rough to do there. So we burn a little replica in the bay itself, burning up the bounty. Now, this last bounty day, it was rough, and we were not able to get the boat out through the surf because it would get saturated. We wouldn't get it burning. So the bounty was out there somewhere. So we burned it on land and had to make do. We'd end up the days having fried fish, having a big feast there at the landing place. Fresh fish. If it's been wriggling 3 hours before you eat it, it's pretty fresh and it's quite nice. And then in the group there are 4 islands in the Pitcairn group. There's Pitcairn, the only inhabited one. Oinu is about 76 miles away, and that is where a lot of shipwrecks were. The last one, I think it was in 1918, that the last ships got wrecked there. Henderson Island is about 110 miles. 107 is the nearest point. We used to go up once a year to cut timber for carvings. Nowadays, they don't go up too often because the cruise ships are coming in the summertime. And wintertime it's a bit risky. Ducie Island is almost 300 miles away. And only a few of us have been there. We went up on a radio ham expedition about 3 years ago. Ducie is a very low island, no more than about 15 feet above sea level. And the Japanese sponsored they paid for a ship, chartered a ship, and we went up making radio contacts. We landed in this Zodiac. We got all our equipment ashore. And we spent a total of 11 days on the island. It was interesting. We made a camp, and in the process of making camp, word got around to the other residents of the island that there's food around, and they came. I've never seen it in my life. Crabs galore, hundreds and hundreds. I don't know how they found out so quickly that there was food around, but they came. And the Japanese here making contacts. We made about 55,000 contacts on that island in 10 days. And this is what the island looks like, a beautiful lagoon. But this is where that ship, I said Betty's grandfather, was late time. And we had a different flag flying. Had an enjoyable time. It was a good experience. Made shelters for radio equipment. The edge of the lagoon. It's a pretty lagoon. It was unusual. We had 5 different camps where we were operating, quite a few operators. And then on the morning of the 11th day, heavy clouds started to gather. We decided it probably wasn't safe to hang around. We don't know the island too much, and we wouldn't want to be marooned there. So we packed up. In a short time we left. Next morning we woke up to Henderson Island, which is much bigger than Pitcairn. It's about 5 miles long, or nearly 5, I believe, and 100 feet above sea level roughly. This happens to be the Eastern Beach. In 1958 we found 5 human beings laid in a row in one of these caves in the Eastern Beach. We were surprised. Don't know exactly where they came from. I never heard the findings of the scientific group who was there in 1991, but it's possible that they were Polynesians. I can't imagine any shipwrecked people would go there and lie down and just die there. There is no water, very, very little water on the island. There is coconuts on this northern beach, planted by the Pitcairners in the early 1840s, I believe. And this beach is about 2 miles long. The eastern one is about 1 mile long. But all about 100 feet above sea level. When we go up, this particular time voyage up there were 2 yachts at the island, and they came up with us. And we cut the timber and then pull it off. Nowadays we pull them off with ropes. We used to get them out in the boats. You can bring a smaller boat and carry them out. And this expedition, we came down, went ashore on the western side. There's only a very small beach there. Spent 2 days and a night ashore, made radio contacts from there, and then we got word that a storm was coming. It was kind of dangerous to stay there, so we packed up, and within a couple hours we were off. We were glad to get away when the surf started coming in. And that was the last. Looking on the western side, you can see what it's like. It's very deceptive. There are shells and coral all over the island, and you probably might have heard that there was the guy Smiley Rapture. He wanted to buy the island from the British government, and they could do that. Like to raise capital, and we saw him just a few weeks ago over in West Virginia, 81 years old now. But when we go to Henderson, we cut timber in short pieces. The people make a living by making carvings with the Miro wood. We have what is called a Miro and a toad wood, and then they'd be well stocked for another year. A lot of these trees have been growing on Pitcairn now over the last few years, for 20 years or more, and there's quite a good supply on the island now. When we want to get away from it all, we go to Oino Island. That's about 75 and 76 miles to the northwest. It's a beautiful little island, but there are a lot of shipwrecks that have been wrecked. There's a couple of camps have been made there, so that if you get down and start raining, at least you can get it and get the stuff from the boats in there. And the boys would go fishing. They like catching the sharks because the teeth would be pulled out, and they remove the jawbone and get the teeth. They want the teeth for putting into real sharks, wooden sharks, I mean, that they caught. And the boats are anchored in the lagoon. It's about 1 mile from the shore out to the reef. And the last ship was wrecked, I think, in, I said 1915 or 1918. But several signs of chain and that are out on the reef. There was one interesting one. The Wild Wave was wrecked there in 1858, and they came up to Pitcairn looking for help. And everyone on Pitcairn had been removed and taken to the North Island. So this captain with 5 other men, they were stuck on Pitcairn. They made a boat, they burned down houses to get nails for fastening, and 6 months later they finally left Pitcairn. They went to the Marquesas, down to Tahiti. They left 2 of them on Pitcairn who didn't want to travel with them. And the ship went from Tahiti up and rescued the 45 passengers who had been living on Oina for more than 6 months. They felt that they never ever going to get off again. But anyway, they did, and it's interesting that they made it all safely back to civilization. And we come in from our journey from the island back to Bounty Bay. It's kind of nice when you've been away. Then we wander up around Adamstown for the last time. We stop at the cemetery. And incidentally, if for any reason you come to Pitcairn and you're not able to get off, we will give you a free burial. It doesn't cost anything. Free burial on Pitcairn Cemetery. We come back to Bounty Bay, look at it there, and there's white water, which means that it's going to be fairly rough. We'd load people back into the boat and head off. The ship generally hangs off about a mile or so. If they anchor, they will be much closer than that. It is our general custom to, when cruise ships come to the island, we sing our goodbye song as it is gone by. And the goodbye song was written by Rosalind and Amelia Young. Some of you might have seen it. It's traditional.